Good morning, everyone. So I thought it'd be really a good moment to come and talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier now that the series is over. So there's a lot to unpack here. And if you read the comics, it is, and looking at the how MCU really began to start this conversation of Avengers and began to demonstrate the Avengers. They put Captain America, the first Avenger movie out, in 2011, 2012. And even though, and then there's this kind of conversation back and forth between Iron Man and Captain America, who is the real leader. And I think, that's a kind of back and forth. I think both of them had in their own way their own leadership role within the Avengers. And you see that kind of taking place over time. One of the things about Captain America, the first Avenger, is that it doesn't really, this was taking place during World War II. Race has always been a backdrop into America's story. So this idea that race doesn't play that much of a role, like we don't see race in Captain America until he actually goes to um, his first action, his first battle, and then he was able to have some of the troops that were integrated. You had an Asian, you had Black person, so he really had an integrated front. But when you come back to America, it was segregated. And I think that's, well, let me say that I wouldn't say segregated. I'd say race was omitted from uh, the conversation, from the military training sites. So knowing about the military, knowing about history, World War One was segregated platoons. World War Two was also segregated. And it wasn't until Truman who began to start integrating parts of the military, and I'm mistaken, I think Army was the last one to integrate. It's either Army or the Air Force, I can't remember. So watching this, it's like, well, I enjoyed Captain America. I enjoyed the first one. And part of it is because it reminded me of The Rocketeer. And The Rocketeer was like my show when I was a kid. And now, fast forward, when you're looking at Falcon and the Winter Soldier, what you're looking at is you can't avoid race. And it is a very forward thing, very forward, very accurate. And for people to get upset that a comic show is a show based on comics is confronting race, it's like, my gosh, that's what the comics did, even if you didn't want to deal with that issue. And really the whole series was the arc of how he had to reconcile with becoming Captain America, and society had to kind of reconcile, what kind of Captain America do you want to be? As good as this show is, there are still some tropes. And so you deal with, the first trope is racism is so implicit and it's so entangled into the DNA that if you were to ask Mr. Walker if he was racist, he would absolutely tell you, of course not. I married a Black woman. How can I be racist? But then on the flip side, the way he talked about Lamar, the way he talked about the way he talked about Lamar, who's his partner, the way that he talked about Sam being just a sidekick fly, his Captain America's little wingman. That's what he called him. I mean, there's races. And then he was constantly called, other people kept, and Black people kept calling him the Black Falcon. Like, was there ever a White Falcon? And he keeps reminding them, I'm just Falcon. And I think that's the unfortunate part about anything, is that we typically we get into the problem of these we get in this entanglement issue where we say Black in front of something. Like, we can't just say president, or or any kind of, in his case, Falcon, without having to denote race. And part of that, I realized that there's a sense of pride because of all the things that he's done and all the things that he's consistently doing. But on the other hand, it feels limiting, and it feels second class ish to have to consistently make that denotation. So there's that. Another thing that I really am interested in, so there's that. So Walker is constantly offensive. And I think by the first two episodes, I mean, I was so angry because he's just constantly saying things that are like, look, not only do we need to kind of work together, but he was just so pushy and so arrogant, and throughout the whole thing, even to the end, he absolutely like had zero issues of, I could just show up. The arrogance is, I could just show up, half do a marginal job. I don't need to research. I don't need to study. I don't need to know anything about anything. I just need to know I can just marginally show up and be good. And it's like, and that's the frustrating thing, because that's what it's like a lot of times in real life, is you can kind of just still magically marginally show up and still get the job. You have a marginally show up, Donald Trump to the debates where Hillary Clinton's all prepared and everything else. He marginally shows up, and people still voted for him and thought that he was more prepared for being president than Hillary Clinton. I know in my own career, I've had marginally show up and they get hired over me, who's like overtly prepared and has this super long resume. And then and then the scene where I think it's episode, it's like the scene, well, anyway, the scene with the episode, I think this is what, 8 episodes? So it had to be episode 6, where he kills someone with the shield. Well, what people want to look at him as insane. No, he's not insane. Like, and that's what's so, I mean, he feels justified in his actions. We see that in the 7th episode. He feels absolutely justified, and he didn't believe that he deserved a punishment for his activity because I am doing retribution. Retribution doesn't mean that I get punished for having retribution. So, needless to say, I mean, it's just whiteness overload. Like it's whiteness on it. And that's the problem with racism. The level of white privilege that comes into play is astounding, frustrating, and astounding. Okay, so there's that aspect. Second aspect of a trope is that Sam has to be the moral compass of the and damn near perfect. And it leaves no room for error. It leaves no room for it. And that's a problem because it's like, why does Sam have to give, he in the last episode he gives a speech, which I mean the speech was good. I think the speech was to show like anger and how frustrated he's been wound up he's been taking it and being meek and wound up and this is like his burst out moment. Like he's not, but at the same token there was a level of intensity with the speech, and because you still don't want to be typecast as this angry black man, but you are angry and you're trying to show you can overcome this anger. And I'm not just, I I think it's frustrating that in order to advance, Black people have to be this perfect. And Sam is indicative of being this perfect and of the effects of being so perfect. I don't, I don't know. I just find it exhausting and frustrating. Um, there's any sidestep, and what Walker did was so over the top. And the fact that he felt that he can self-appoint and self-deserve to have the shield still by making his own is indicative of white privilege at its finest. I'm sorry, y'all. My husband's alarm is going off, and I have a conference today, and I'm hoping that he turns that off before my conference starts. um, what else? Okay, so I think so at the end we do see that he becomes Captain America. And I was on, on my panel, we stayed up all night, watched it, and did the show at like 1 o'clock in the morning just to go off of how we felt. First of all, the season finale was everything, was so awesome. So I want to like completely say how awesome it was. But on the other hand, the alarm. But on the other hand, he needs a movie. Like, You cannot have like Captain America had 3 movies in the last arc. The notion that Captain America, this version of Captain America, will not have a movie is so problematic. Like I said on the show, he has to have a movie. Like there needs like that's there's I can't even um like there's no discussion. Like there's no if, maybe, why. No, he has to have a movie, and that just is what it is. So when is the movie starting? Like I mean, and I don't think it can be in I mean, I know it won't be recent, and I know it won't be soon, because we have this upcoming, because the MCU, let's talk about the MCU as a whole for a second. The MCU is so intricate. And I'm going to tell you that if you want to watch this show, please go back and really enjoy it. Please go back and look at Winter Soldier, um, Captain America Winter Soldier, and please go back and look at Civil War, because this really is a continuation of those 2 films. And you'd really enjoy it more if you watch Civil War and Winter Soldier. Um, so there's that. Finally, but the next things that are coming up in the MCU, like the next films that are coming out, are really inter, in space, leaning towards space. You have the Eternals. I know that Shang-Chi is coming out, but outside of that, you have the Eternals, then you have Spider-Man, not then, but I'm just saying you have Doctor Strange, then you have Doctor Strange, then the third one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like everything is so geared towards, oh, and Ant-Man, geared towards this intergalactical and out of space, and even Guardians of the Galaxy is coming. So I just can't, and Loki, and Thunder, a Thor. I just can't wrap my head around how a Captain American can fit in this. But I mean, I guess you have Black Panther coming, and so there's that in 2023. I can't see how Captain America film would be able to come until like 2023 or 2024. And that would suck that this series would not, if we have to wait until the film drops before we get to see another, season 2. But I'm hoping that season 2 can come, maybe, if probably not this year, but next year. And then we could have a film in maybe 2024 or something. But a film has to happen. But as a whole, this was, I mean, I like this a lot. And I struggle with saying that it was better than why is I don't know why. It's because of stupid alarm. Um WandaVision, but I want to say that I enjoy both of them in different spaces. Like I have different reasons to enjoy WandaVision. WandaVision to me was like a puzzle, and I loved the notion of putting these puzzle pieces together. This one was more like a heart and soul show that was really fashion. I mean, that had a lot of action. And so my heart and soul was kind of attached to this one. Whereas Wanda was like, so let's put my puzzle pieces together. Oh my gosh, this is this and this is this. And so both of them were really cool. I know that some people could be disappointed that the power broker was kind of easy to spot. I think that, and it was kind of a simplistic build, but I think it also kind of took things for the loop. And I'm not kind of, I mean, because if you go back to her in Civil War, well, into both films, because she was in Winter Soldier and Civil War, this, how long has she been this double agent? People assume maybe just in the last 5 years or so, 6 years, maybe. But I don't know, it could be before. I don't know. I don't know. Um, there's so much here. And I'll save the last thing for last because I actually have to go. Isaiah is, and to me, people are looking at the trope that if you had a Captain America, didn't you think that there was some experimenting going on? And so it was a nice ode. Now, there is a comic book, it's called Truth, and it's 7 parts. You can only download it now on Kindle. You cannot go out and purchase. Well, maybe you could, but I haven't been able to find a place to purchase it non-digitally. And they don't have the 7 all in one book. So that's another thing that's a little unfortunate. So it's only like $2 if you purchase it digitally per episode, per thing, per book. So it'll be like $10 for the series. You should read it. It's pretty cool. It gives a whole arc of the first Captain America, and you can totally see. I loved how he put him in the history because I think that that's a really important trope. And then the final touch of the hug at the end. I mean, I was definitely caught up with emotion. Excellent series, excellent way, excellent timing for it to drop this week. I hope you enjoy.